This week I'm going to talk to you about a number of topics. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the story behind why I am who I am today and how I got here. I'm going to talk to you about those early thoughts of fatherhood, the challenges that you're going to face, that narrative that you tell yourself in advance of becoming a dad, and those early thoughts as you push on through those early days. I'm also going to touch on masculinity and the importance of masculinity today, the importance of your role as a dad in the home and in your children's lives. And then I'm going to talk about opportunity and progress. So before we continue, let's talk about how we got to where we are today. April 2020, I want to just take you back 5 years. COVID had just started and my youngest had just been born. He was 11 days old when my world started to fall apart. Everything around me just disintegrated. I carried with me this burden, this challenge that I hadn't overcome, these obstacles that I just allowed to disrupt my ability to be a good parent, a good dad, a good partner. I had allowed myself to slip. I had allowed the dark thoughts to consume me. And it all came to a head in April 2020. So Max has just turned 5 this week, so you can see why this episode is so important to me. We had got to a position where Max had arrived and COVID had shut the world down. We were one of the last couples out of the hospital where I was able to be there at the birth of my son. But it wasn't anything to do with COVID. It had nothing to do with where we found ourselves at that time. Max arrived, Henry was a bundle of joy, an excitable little chap, and his world at that point had been turned upside down. Everything he knew as a bubbly 2-year-old would come crashing down in the matter of days. No nursery, no grandma, both parents at home and a new baby brother. Now my role as his dad, well, provider, protector, that person that understands how to navigate these new challenges. But in reality, I was a shadow of who I was supposed to be at that time. I was a shadow of the man they needed me to be. I'd slipped so far that the darkness had just left me looking for an out. And it had been a tough day with Henry. He was trying so desperately to adapt to having a baby brother, but all he really wanted was love, attention and connection. But one difficult night, we just couldn't get into bed. And I just thought to myself, how do I escape this world? How do I escape this pressure that we're under, this pressure cooker? How do I become the dad they need me to be? But I couldn't see any answers to those questions. And after that tough evening, that battle that rages on sometimes at bedtime, Henry and I, we took a drive. Went out into the car, probably against the COVID regulations at that point, but we just needed to find, or I needed to find, a moment to breathe, a moment to decompress, because I was lost. The pain was all-consuming, the frustration, the anger, the anguish. But I couldn't put my finger on why. In the midst of my paternity leave, I was supposed to be happy. This was supposed to be a joyful occasion. This was supposed to be something that I'd looked forward to. I was ready to be dad for the second time. I was ready to welcome Max into our world. But in reality, the world outside had crushed my spirit and stopped me seeing the importance of my role, stopped me seeing the joy that fatherhood brings. Because when you have a new baby and when you have a toddler adjusting to that baby, your role is so important. You have this opportunity to just wrap your arms around both of them and create this protective space. And I failed to do that. I'd fallen so far that I was lost. I couldn't see the light and I needed to find an out. That led to this drive deep into the night. Silence filled the car. I could feel the tension building, the frustration, the anger, the narrative that I was telling myself. Are they better off without me? Why do I feel like such a failure? Why can I not find the answer? Finally, Henry settled. And as he settled into his car seat, I knew that he'd been feeding off my energy. That's why he was still wide awake for so long. He'd fed off that energy And we got to this position where I just needed to get him home now, get him to bed. I needed to breathe. Little did I know that this was going to be a moment that changed our lives forever, and a moment that changed the trajectory of my fatherhood story, and in reality, it's why I'm stood here talking to you, and it's why I hope you understand that early pressures of fatherhood can trip you up. But in reality, those early fatherhood memories mask some of the pain and the challenges that you're facing, and that's where I was, burned out and a shadow of the man I was supposed to be. As I stepped over the threshold into the home, I brought Henry up to his room, settled him down, and then made my way downstairs to see my partner, who was nursing our baby boy. Brilliant baby boy. I could feel her love, her warmth, her joy of being a mum again. I knew that she would navigate whatever storm we were facing together with poise, with dignity. I knew deep down that she'd be okay. But that didn't stop me when pushed into a corner, when challenged. It didn't stop me lashing out. It didn't stop me shouting. It didn't stop me throwing out words that I didn't understand the meaning of at the time. When she pushed me to understand what was wrong, she knew I had been distant. She knew deep down that there was something wrong with me and there was something that was unsettling. She challenged me. She wanted rightly to know what was wrong. This is supposed to be a time of joy, a time of happiness. And here I was, in the dark, unable to communicate, unable to be more open and honest about the way I felt. So instead of taking a step back, pausing and breathing before I spoke, I just turned to her and said, I don't want to be here anymore. I don't want to be alive. Those words ripped across the room and destroyed her. They left her blank. They left her in pain. I had destroyed everything we'd worked for in a moment of weakness, a moment of vulnerability, a moment where perhaps I should have taken a step back and understood what it was I was trying to communicate. But when you are backed into a corner, you lash out, you force yourself to utter the words because you think it's an escape. You think they'll leave you alone if you give them the answer. The problem was, in this circumstance, the answer was so destructive to the situation that we were in. A new mum cradling her baby, and her husband had just admitted that he wasn't ready to be alive. He did not want to be there. He was done. It was her reaction that set the chain of events in motion, allowed me to become the man I am today, to become the dad I still work to be. I failed her. I failed my boys. I had allowed myself to be consumed by fear, by anger, by frustration, by the overwhelm. But it had nothing to do with fatherhood. And that's the importance of this story. You may be careering into your fatherhood journey. You may have just had a baby. And you might be feeling overwhelmed. You might be feeling tired. You might just be feeling a little jaded. You might put it down to sleep deprivation if baby's just arrived. You might put it down to your partner's early motherhood experience. You might put it down to, if you've got balls, a lack of preparation. But let me be frank. It's got nothing to do with fatherhood. It's got nothing to do with your baby. It's got nothing to do with your partner. It's got everything to do with how you've handled pressure, change, challenge, how you've overcome mistakes in the past. If you are carrying a heavy weight into your fatherhood story, then it will influence the way you are around your kids. It will influence the way you feel early doors. It will influence how you feel around your children, but also it will influence how you think about your contribution and the value that you bring, because early fatherhood is a test. It's a test of our resilience, our strength, our passion, our joy, our love. It tests the fabric of who we are. It tests our relationship. It tests our courage. But it's there to shape who you become. These tests are all there. They're all designed to shape how you can interact with your children, how you will shape your future, their future, and how you will lead and guide by example. The challenge that we face is that we bring so much baggage. And that's not everyone, but certainly in my case, I carried so much baggage that when the world shut down, when our baby arrived, my judgment was clouded. I thought biting down on that gum shield and battling through, taking hit after hit, whatever those hits may have been, I thought that was the right thing to do. I am the protector, the provider. You get shit done, that's your job. Fatherhood demands that you embody masculinity, demands that you provide, that you protect, that you deliver when it matters most. It demands so much of you. But if you're stuck in a rut like I was, if you are jaded, if you're exhausted, if you're frustrated in any way, shape or form, then you're not going to be in the position to influence from a position of strength, courage, confidence, passion. That is the masculine traits that you need to embody in the early fatherhood stages. Those are the things that will set you apart. Those are the things that will create that bond between you and baby. I failed. I slipped up. She gave me one chance, one shot, one opportunity. Can you hear Eminem? She gave me that one chance to redeem myself, to recover. I had to set the example. I had to set the tone. I had to focus on my recovery. I had to learn from my mistakes. I had to understand what those mistakes were and why they held me back and why I allowed them to destroy that moment of beauty. Fatherhood is going to challenge you. It is going to drive you mad, bonkers at times. But it's going to test your mettle, your mental strength, your resilience, your courage. But it's also going to give you this opportunity to assess just how far you've come. It's going to give you this opportunity to celebrate your progress as a man, as a dad, as a partner. It's going to give you this time to just embrace the simple things, those things that truly matter, like a bedtime routine, bath time routine, cuddles on the sofa, playing games, getting down to their level and engaging in their story. Your job is to understand what holds you back. Your role is to overcome it, is to understand your limitations and understand how you can learn from those setbacks, learn from those mistakes so that you can give them something unique, the dad they need. Because when we talk about uniqueness, the dad they need is right here. The dad they need is within, deep down. You need to overcome whatever challenges you faced, whatever things you think are holding you back. Because fatherhood does unlock your ability to be more vulnerable. It empowers you to be more resilient, to guide from a position of strength. It gives you a chance to lead by example. But you have to do some soul searching. You have to understand what mistakes you've made, where those mistakes come from, what's the root cause of the challenges that you've faced, and what's held you back, what stopped you becoming the man that you've always wanted to be, what stopped you embodying the characteristics, the values of that person that can create life, that can deliver a future that's something that everyone can look forward to in your family. We all doubt ourselves early on. We all question whether we're contributing enough, and we also question whether people value our contribution. But the challenge that you must overcome, and you've got to see this coming, is that the true value that you bring comes from you. It doesn't come from anybody else's opinion. It comes from your preparation, it comes from your willingness to adapt, it comes from your emotional responsiveness, it comes from your integrity, it comes from your values, your belief system, whatever it might be. It's in here. It's in here. It's how you think, it's how you feel, it's how you process challenges, it's how you process emotion, it's how you respond under pressure. Whatever the mistake is, it's how you respond to that mistake. How you respond to the challenges of early fatherhood will shape your relationship with your children, shape your relationship with your partner, So if you bury your head in the sand and you think that pushing on and driving on is the right thing to do, hopefully my story is one of warning. It is okay to keep pushing on. It is okay to drive your family forward, but not at the expense of your mental health, not at the expense of your connection with your kids, not at the expense of your relationship. Everything you do from the moment that your children are conceived is leading up to this seismic shift in your world. Because the moment they arrive, that is the moment when you are tested. Your skill set will be lacking, and therefore you've got to learn on the fly. And some of us adapt really well to that. But some of us rely on the experiences, rely on the behaviours that have got us through in the past, and that's where I was. I genuinely thought pushing on was the right thing to do because that's all I'd done before. I'd ignored the challenge, forced my way beyond that issue, and had no interest in reflecting on how it was chipping away at my confidence, how it was chipping away at the value that I put on myself and my contribution. I had no consideration for how it was damaging my self-esteem, my confidence, the respect I had for myself. And you need to have confidence, you need to have self-esteem to lead your family forward. But also, you need that confidence to be able to just navigate early interactions with your children, with your partner, as she tries desperately to understand how her world is shifting as a new mum. See, our role is one of spectator to start with. But as she finally finds her rhythm, that's when you step in. That's when you contribute more, because you begin to understand her relationship and the dynamic that she has with baby and the demands and cues of your baby. And therefore, as you become more aware of the pressure that she's under, or the difficulties that she's faced that day or that week, or the exhaustion that she's feeling, that's when you step in, that's when you contribute. But if your judgment is clouded and you're not thinking straight, how do you tap into those feelings? How do you become emotionally aware of the pressure that she's under? How do you influence her mood? How do you just stand shoulder to shoulder with her through this difficult period? Your role is so important to you, to her, to baby. Don't undervalue your contribution. If you're undervaluing your contribution, you're listening to this today, it's because you're not clear on your role. You're not clear on the impact that you can have, and you're certainly not clear on the influences that are stopping you becoming the dad they need you to be. In today's world, there's so much pressure, so many different challenges to navigate, that we forget that the simple things are what counts. That presence, that connection, the fact that you're distant because your judgment is clouded is building a barrier between you and your partner, between you and your young children. And that's why understanding what's stopping you, the things that are distracting you from that connection, that's why they're so important. You've got to drill down into the things that are stopping you becoming the dad they need. Because as someone who struggled back in 2020, who's someone who lost sight of what was important, I had one chance to make amends. I had to prove to my partner over a long period of time that I was back on track, that I wasn't prepared to rip up her world, destroy everything that we'd worked for, and leave her and our children without a dad. The darkness is all-consuming, but if you're prepared to challenge the way that you think, if you're prepared to ask for help, ask for support, or even just admit that you're feeling a little off, that, right, is not a sign of weakness. It might be a sign of vulnerability, but that vulnerability actually builds strength. It builds confidence. It also builds trust between you and your partner, because your dialogue on how you feel in the moment, how you're feeling as a dad, can help her unlock how she's feeling as a new mum, as a mother of multiple children, how she's trying to adapt to everything, what support she needs. Because it's a two-way street. She can support you if you're prepared to take that step and admit that you need support. And you can better support her. It brings you together. Now, there is the shame associated with opening up. There is a shame to looking weak and vulnerable. But look, within the four walls of your home, if you're not able to be authentic, if you're not able to be a true reflection of the dad they need, of the man that they need, of the partner that she needs, then how do you expect your children as they get older to understand what they're capable of, or understand who they truly are inside, and importantly understand how they can stop things eroding their confidence, thoughts and feelings of others eroding their contribution and their value? Your role is critical to the success of your partner, of your baby, of your family. Your role is to step up and be counted. Your role is to embody positive masculinity, strength, passion, courage, confidence, honour, value. Embody the basic concepts too: provision, protection. Be the best version of yourself so that you can lift others around you up. Because ultimately you are the role model. Your masculine traits are needed in the home. If you've got boys, you want them to be strong, self-confident, have respect for others, to lead by example. You want them to find their voice, to stand their ground on points of dispute. You want them to protect their families, to protect their friends. But importantly, you want them to have that mindset of confidence first, self-belief first, self-value. You want them to be able to value who they are, value their beliefs, value their contribution to society as they get older. You want them to have that strength, that internal strength, that resilience, that fire that gives them an opportunity to live life on their terms, at their pace. Your role, it doesn't matter how long in the tooth you are as a dad, it doesn't matter how old your kids are, they evolve. And my friend, you need to too. Your evolution as a dad starts when baby's born. But in order to evolve, in order to progress, to embody positive masculinity, to embody the traits necessary to lead by example, you've got to reflect on the mistakes that you've made and the things that held you back. And if you can do that, you have an opportunity to shine bright. You have an opportunity to give them something unique, something that they can see and aspire to be. That is your role as a dad. That is the role that you play in your home. It doesn't matter what goes on outside. It doesn't matter the pressure that you're under. Because today, you need to take a step back. You need to reflect on the role that you play, the influence that you have. Give yourself a score. Are you meeting their fundamental needs? Are you giving them what they need? Are you simplifying your approach? Are you leading by example? And importantly, how distracted are you? And how much do you value? And how much do you value your impact? You can lead authentically. You can lead with confidence, with passion. You can drive your family forward. But it's about self-reflection. It's about understanding who you are as a man. Because the moment you understand who you are as a man, the moment you reflect on the power that you have and the skills and the values and the beliefs that you hold, that is when you can truly give them what they need. Because you can shut the door to the noise. You can focus on what's important. You can connect on a deeper level. And that is why you're dad. That is the role that you play, and that is the impact that you need to have today. Your role is critical to the success of your family, and never undervalue your contribution, never question the sacrifices that you make, but be be sure to understand what's important to you and how it impacts them, how it impacts your ability to turn up in the moment on a daily basis. The Modern Fatherhood Club, as always, has your back. You can check out all our courses, our ebooks, our tools. You can join the community at themodernfatherhoodclub.com. You can subscribe to the podcast. You can subscribe to the YouTube channel if you're watching there. The Modern Fatherhood Club has your back because we believe in you. We know that you have the ability to show up. We understand that you carry a lot, that there's a lot of pressure on you, but we recognise that your masculine traits, your confidence, your ability to step up, your ability to lead by example will help your children navigate all the obstacles in the future. You play a critical role, and never underestimate how much love your family, your partner, your kids have for you. Show up today, show it with passion, show it with love. Live and lead by example. This has been Friday Fuel. I'm Aidan. Thank you so much for listening, and I'll see you soon.